Morning thoughts on my way home from the gym, hence the crazy hair. You know, there's a lot of people who are realizing that the commandments matter and that they mean something and that we're actually meant to live by them, and that the word forever in scripture actually means forever. So now all of us at our different points in life and our different levels of understanding are trying to figure out exactly what that means. And how do we do that in this day and age? How do we actually keep the commandments of Abba Father? And one of the reasons that I have heard someone say that more and more people are coming into the knowledge of Torah, of the commandments mattering, is that the world's getting darker. And so what scripture calls light, which is the Torah, if you read Psalm 119 and many other scriptures, is shining brighter and brighter, especially within the church and all of the confusion and all of the different teachings and all of the different denominations, which is why I ascribe to none. I mean, listen to all, follow none, right? Take everything and test it against the scriptures, which the scriptures are the Tanakh, the Old Testament, so Genesis through Deuteronomy, and then you have the prophets and writings. When Paul says that I think it's Paul, maybe it was Timothy, I can't remember who it was because I'm really bad at chapter verse. I have to actually look stuff up and look in the Bible, but it's written that all scripture is good for teaching and reproof, teaching and correction. There was no New Testament written when that was written, so that should tell you something. Also, Messiah, he didn't teach from any New Testament because it wasn't written. The New Testament is like expounding upon what already was, but it is not the foundation. And so if you try to make a doctrine out of something that is not the foundation, you build it on sinking sand. You try to have a Pauline theology when all Paul was doing was actually reiterating and reinforcing the Torah, and he spent his whole life defending himself that he wasn't teaching against the Torah. If you actually read his words, you have to have the right foundation. You have to have that knowledge first. Why do some people still resist walking in God's commandments? Why do they not keep the Sabbath? Why do they not follow the biblical feasts? Why do they have a counterfeit Sunday day of rest, which is not even a day of rest because you go out to eat and you do all your chores and whatever, right? Why do they have counterfeit pagan holidays like Christmas and Easter that are meant to worship other gods? And Abba says, don't do that. Don't use pagan stuff to worship me. Don't worship me the way the pagans do, he says in Deuteronomy, and we do it anyway. It's because we have a self-centered faith. We think that God is here to serve us rather than we are here to serve God. We think that God was somehow created for us rather than we were created for God, by God. And we get the hierarchy of things flipped. And this is how I can testify to this. I know it was my own perspective and is the perspective of many, you know, that I've talked to that have been pulled out of the false light into the correct light. And so the false light being like Christianity in general at large. Now, it doesn't mean, I mean, when I was Christian, when that was my label, when I went to a normal Sunday church, when I led worship, when I led youth bands, when I did all this stuff, does that mean that my heart wasn't genuinely seeking? No, it doesn't. But it means that I was deceived to a certain level because I was following incorrect teachings because I didn't go and test scripture for myself. I believed it when the pastor said that we are under grace and no longer under the law, and Jesus nailed it all to the cross, right? And now, in my understanding, in my own study, I realize that the law and grace work together. They're not in opposition with each other. Yeshua did not come to nullify his Father's word, because that would actually go against scripture, that it doesn't return to him void and that it stands forever. And he came to show us the way. And so what is believing in Messiah? Mental ascension to the fact that he came, he walked this earth, he lived the Torah perfectly, and then he died to do away with it, and now we're good, we can live however we want. No. Believing in Messiah is belief unto something. The word emunah is like belief, trust, kind of all of that wrapped up in one, and it has to yield a result. Otherwise, like what James says, faith without works is dead. So what are the works that we are to do that are the evidence of the faith that we have, right? And so those are keeping the commandments. And so, you know, Yeshua, it doesn't just mean salvation. It means God saves. So Yeshua came to show us the way. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, right? And what does the Bible call in Psalm 19 and many other scriptures Torah? calls it the way, it calls it the truth, it calls it a lamp unto my feet, calls it a light, right? So Yeshua came to show us the way, and if we follow the way, that leads us to the salvation that we endure to the end to find, that Abba has given us. He has given us a way to reconcile ourselves with Him, right? But we have to follow that way. We have to do something if we want to live in covenant with Him. We have to be an active participating member in that covenant. And I fall short all the time. I misunderstand things. I realize I was wrong. I go back and I redo. It is an ever-growing, ever-changing process. The one thing that doesn't change is Him, is Abba Father. Okay, but we change constantly in light of further revelation of that. So everything that I ever say is always with the preface, in my current understanding, and I reserve the right to tweak this as I gain more wisdom, because I'm praying for it and asking for it constantly. Because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. But that's okay. But it's when we say, nope, this is what I believe. Nope, I won't give this up. Nope, I won't stop doing this. That's when we get stifled. Nope, I won't give up my pork. Nope, I won't give up my Christmas. No, I won't give up my Easter. Nope, I won't give up my ministry title that feeds something in me more than it serves God. Okay, I had to check my own heart on that. And I know a lot of people have said the same thing, and maybe there's some of you out there that are feeling that little bit of conviction that maybe the place that you're serving in is more about you and the title and self-gratification, or maybe it's a mixture of you and God. Maybe it started out really well intended, but I mean, I've stepped down from leadership positions because I'm like, I feel like this is starting to feed something in me. I started out with good intentions, but I've got something I got to work through. We have to constantly be okay with like the ebbs and flows, you know, of this life and of growth and of figuring this out. We will never understand it all. We will never have a perfect theology, but the point is to continue to keep like redefining it. There is an absolute truth of Scripture that is never redefined. But in light of constantly gaining more wisdom and understanding and dying to ourselves and submitting ourselves more and more to the Father's will, trying to be like our Messiah who said to follow Him, we do continually change. The truth and the Word and the Spirit that reveals that truth, none of that ever changes. But we continue to change in light of it, and our understanding continues to grow. So I would challenge you to have a perspective that is less about yourself, challenging myself as well, less about myself, and more about serving my Abba Father. And how do I serve Him? He says, if you love me, you keep my commands. And the first and greatest commandment is to love God. And if we keep those commandments, guess what? We're going to love people the way that He said to love them. You know, they didn't just all of a sudden come up with these two simple commandments to make it easy for everyone in the New Testament. No. It says that on everything else, these hinge, right? So that means if you were to draw a flow chart, you would have the two greatest commandments: love God, love people. You got to love God before you can love people. And I'm still learning how to do that well. I suck at it a lot of times. And then underneath that, you have the Big Ten, right? Keep the seventh day holy. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, all those, right? And then underneath that, it gets a little more granular. So, like, that's kind of how I look at it, is like, as we're getting more granular, as He's convicting us more and more, as we mature and we grow, He's going to get more detailed on stuff. And ultimately, all of it is about changing and circumcising our hearts to be fully committed and submitted to Him, just like our Messiah Yeshua was. So, you know, we can do all the do's and don'ts, and we can be a Pharisee, which I have been at times for sure, and I have repented of that. And we can just do the things to do the things, and that's it. And we want people to see us doing the things, and we want to be right and whatever. Yep, been there, done that, been a Pharisee, been a Bible thumper, been a Torah terrorist. Get it. Not good. But our hearts, we have to want to see other people come into that knowledge. We want to live a life that invites people to that. And I haven't done the best at it like I said, myself, and he's starting to help me figure out exactly the heart position I'm supposed to have in the do's and don'ts. I'm a very structured person. It's really easy for me to do the right thing because it's the right thing. But he's like, all right, you're a disciplined person, but now I need your heart to be in the right place. And maybe some people have like, you know, a heart that's like, I want to do the right thing, but I just can't stick to this, or I just can't understand that. He's going to bring the discipline and the wisdom, right? So each of us have places we have to grow. And season to season, there's usually some facet that needs to grow. And so he's going to keep challenging us to do that. So I just want to challenge you today to make sure that the perspective that you have is not that like, oh, everything was done for me and now I'm good. I want you to think about what you can do for the Father, because he is so good, because he has made a way. And if we follow that way, it will lead, if we endure to the end, to ultimate salvation, where we get to spend forever with him, whatever that looks like. I'm not even going to try to, you know, crack that egg open. But so just things to think about this morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and shalom.